Hey guys and girls, welcome to our first webinar for 2023, and I thought it would be important. Finance seems to be the tip of everyone's conversation at the moment, and Rose is very much in demand at the moment. Everyone wants to talk to her and got questions, and what can we do? And I thought it'd be best to get Rose on tonight to talk to you guys about finance. So just as we get started, I did a Facebook Live last night, Rose. And it didn't work for 8 times, right? 7 times. And I went and drove using my mobile phone under a 5G tower just to get some reception. So if we can just check that everyone can see us and hear us and all that is good, that'd be great. So yeah, Rose, there's a little note here from someone here saying to make sure that you stay in the frame because you might be, you might need to come over this way a little bit. So,
okay,
yeah.
That's better?
Yeah, or maybe a little bit nudged that way. But yeah, that should be fine. That should be fine. So we'll get into tonight's episode. We're going to be talking about 8 tips to maximize your property finance journey in 2023. It is very different than what things have been in previous years. Rose, you've been doing this for a very long time now.
Very, very long time.
I've been doing my loans for 18 years or so. So over the course, like back in the old days, I feel so old just saying back in the old days.
So you must be 36 years old now because I met you when you were 18.
37.
In May, yeah.
And I'm turning 38 this year.
Oh.
I've been investing for 20 years now, Rose.
Okay.
I'm an old man. I know you keep getting younger and younger, but I'm just getting older and older, right? But over the years, we've seen lots of different things happen in finance markets. When you first started your career in finance, things were very different to what they are now, and it's constantly changing. Do you think you've ever seen a year that's been the same as the year beforehand?
I think 2004 and in 1990 with Paul Keating when 13% is the interest rate. Do you remember the time?
No, I don't. I was in like year 2.
Yeah, there was a time under Paul Keating when he was a treasurer. I think the interest rate was 13%.
Oh no, I don't mean about interest rates going up. Do you see like the lending market just in general? Like, does it always stay the same, or is it constantly changing? Good,
it
bad?
Constantly changed.
Yeah. Have you ever seen it go good and then bad and then good again? Like getting loans and ability to get loans?
I think this year is, for me, I've never seen a succession of increase in interest rate. We're now going 11 months of having this increase.
I'm laughing, Rose. So you know my interest rates, you've done my loans, and like everyone's scared, and I get it, right? Like my interest rates have gone up. My personal loans, right? I calculated that there was 15 million in that. 3% of 15 million, 450 grand a year. A lot of them are double digit because they're the old loans that they can't refi over. And looking at some of those newer loans that I got, there's like another 10 mil there and another 5 mil. I've probably got 30 mil worth of loan, and 30 mil worth of debt at a 3% increase. That's $1 million a year, right? But if I put up 200 rents at $50, there's $500,000 extra income. And this is only temporary, right? The rents stay up for long term. The interest rates go up and down. If we remember, every time the interest rates came down, they didn't just come down, okay, it's gone up a quarter every month. They bring it down a quarter every month. They drop it by 0.5%. They drop it by a full percent. They got a lot more harsher. So I think a lot of people are scared, and with right so. But yeah, I think there's a lot of other things that you can be doing to improve your position. That's what tonight's really all about. So I'm going to just really sit here and maybe prompt you on a few things, but hand it over to you tonight, Rose. But the agenda for tonight is, as we can see on the screen, we're going to look at why you should refinance your home loan, examples of recent refinances, and how Rose and the team at Zinger have been able to help our clients, how a homeowner can refinance. It's all on the screen. Don't need to say that. We'll just jump straight into it. So, Rose, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have been a mortgage broker since 2002, so I've seen a lot of it. I've seen most of it during my time for 22 years, and then the volatility. 23 years, volatility of the market, the interest rate going up and down, and the market crash and that sort of stuff. But hey, we survived.
Yeah.
There are ways to mitigate it. Right? It's either on the savings or negotiating the interest rate. But let me introduce first what is Zinger. Yeah, is that all right? Zinger is a team of experienced mortgage brokers who are already knowledgeable in all aspects of mortgage products and very passionate about helping our clients achieve their financial goals. We offer a range of mortgage products from multiple lenders, and we will work closely with the clients to ensure that we understand their goals, their objectives, and find the right mortgage products to suit their individual circumstance. And that's what we do every day. Every individual has different goals, different financial position, and we make sure that we in sync with them.
Yeah. And everybody watching this would have a goal or wanting to do something or have some sort of position. And I think if it wasn't for the banks being pain in the ass, I'd have 2,000 properties here, right? Not 200, right? But if it wasn't for the banks, as much as we can hate on the banks, I'd have no properties because I wouldn't have been able to leverage and get the run on the board to start off with. So it's knowing how the lending works, understanding what you need. I remember when I first came to you, I was using the bank at St. George. Right?
Yes, St. George, Bank.
I put, you put your Dolomite account for your CBA. Like it's like you get indoctrinated at school that they give you a money bank and then you just use that bank forever. The Dragon, as a kid. And I had the Dragon money box and ended up getting my first loan and the first two loans, the first three loans. They stitched my legs together. And I didn't know what I was doing, and they told me I couldn't buy any more properties. And then I met you, and then you told me no, we can go to different banks, and then it's learning and growing from there.
And you use your credit card for deposit.
I've used my credit card. I've used other people's credit cards. I've done whatever it takes to get there, right? I've done whatever it's taken to get me to the next level. And I think a lot of people can sit here, in fear. I remember, Rose, you always refer back to me in the old days, right? Like I've got a face full of grey hair now and I'm an old man, and you said something beforehand that I'm a rugged old man or something.
You're not an old man.
I don't know, right? But you met me when I had cufflinks and tie and working in a corporate job.
Pink business shirt.
Very, very different sort of life. Over that period of time, like when I quit my job, it was in the middle of the GFC. And if we think about the GFC, at that point, interest rates had risen from 2003 to 2007. You could see that there was a recession. I didn't see anything at the time. I was just like a kid and I was so stupid. I was just trying to buy stuff. But looking back, the writing was on the wall. And my whole strategy and the strategy that I put forward for all my investors now was based on being scared back in the day. That was minimizing risk. It's having the strong cash flow. It's buying in below market value. And that's worked through. And if you look at it, previous recessions and previous bad times, it's been a recession-proof sort of strategy. And we're at a point now, like in a period when 2008, 2009 came, my portfolio was negative 40 grand a year at one point.
Yeah.
And it went positive 30, 40 grand a year within like 18 months soon after.
Yeah.
I could have sat there and been like, oh, the poor me. But I've just pushed myself and I held on, and I actually bought them negative. Like I wasn't buying these things that went negative. I actually bought them negative gear. Like I just all I knew. And they were the least negative that I could find. And those properties, when I look back now, like they've doubled, tripled again, those sort of things. But it was very quick for most people were living in fear, people were losing their jobs, GFC, interest rates had risen so high. But it was only really 5 months that it took, right? I think it was the end of 2007 where they dropped interest rates 5 consecutive months from 7.25% down to 3%. 425 basis points off, and it ended up 300 basis points. That is like 66% of a reduction in interest rate in a period of 5 months. And that's how quick things can change. So a lot of people.
Do you think it can be repeated?
Oh, will be, definitely, 100% will be. And Rose can't give you that information, but I've done all my prognostication and
I asked the question.
Yeah, you asked the question. So my thoughts, yes, we will see that. But you've been doing this for a long time. last year was 10 years since I started Zinger, which we didn't even realise, or I didn't realise. Rose tells me all these things. That
I have a memory of an elephant.
You do, you have a very good memory. And I was looking up something. I was like, hang on a second, it was 10 years ago that we started this. And looking at, you know, all the things over the last 10 years, we've been able to do really cool things for investors with their portfolios. You know, there's not many people out there that can build double-digit portfolios, especially in this sort of market. And that's, you know, you can say all the things that you just said about your team. Our brokers, when they come to us, you've trained those brokers up.
Yeah, very.
Probably 80% of the brokers, when you come on board, you've trained them up. Your knowledge on products is amazing, but structuring that debt, structuring the portfolio is very, very crucial. And you know, most brokers out there just try and fix the interest rate for 2 years, put you cross-collateralized, and really look after themselves. I always joke that at Zinger we run a charity because the stuff that we do, we're double and tripling our work, but we don't get paid for it because we're having to refinance your property and restructure it and all that sort of stuff, where we could have a much better business, but it wouldn't be to your advantage. So when building large portfolios, you need the right advice, the right structuring, and that's where the team come in to help our investors.
Can I just share this with you? I was talking to a client yesterday, right, and come from overseas and then back to Australia, and really like employment and that sort of thing, right? So I didn't realize, so I just told him, like, this is 6 months ago, this is what you should be doing, but you know, all this strategy that I put in place. He followed it, and now he's got 4 loans. I mean, imagine, self-employed from overseas, coming to Australia, and did exactly what I asked him to do.
Yeah.
And I think I was so elated to, you know, like, oh my God, I've never thought he'll follow it, right? But here we go.
Yeah.
So there is always an answer. It may not, if your circumstance may not happen today or tomorrow, but if we put a structure in place or strategy in place, it can be done. It will happen.
I know there's a lot of people that are out there that are like, you know, I want to do this. People are fearful of the market. I'm just talking from the other side of it, right? People are fearful of the market at the moment. They go, oh, will the property market crash and whatnot, right? I don't believe so. I wish it does. But the thing is that I know that there's so many people that are wanting to get into the market now, but they just can't because of servicing, right?
Servicing is the biggest challenge.
If you've got the right strategy, and then it might not be today that you can get a loan. It might be in 3 months' time. It might be that here's something I was thinking about. I'll say this before I go on to the next thing. It could be 3 months' time, interest rates start falling. It could be 6 months' time, interest rates start falling, and then you can be able to service again. So if you have the right strategy, you can plan everything else. When that gate opens up for you to be able to lend again, well, then that's when, you know, you make things happen. So
that's
get yourself finance ready. I was going to say something else, but I forgot what it was. So I'll leave that over.
So
So getting on to our first thing, why should someone refinance their home loan, Rose?
Oh my God, for so many reasons. Yes, we should refinance if maybe negotiating for a lower interest rate. And then when I mean, can I go this one? I will dissect every point. Is that all right? Yeah. Yeah. So lower interest rates. Say, for example, you're your current lender. You want to stay with that lender. You don't want to do external refinance. You want to do internal refinance. And lately we have been doing that. So when you want to stay, just keep in touch with it because we can negotiate for your interest rate. The reason that you want to do internal refinance is because you don't want to hustle. You don't want to hustle to go external. If that is the case, we can negotiate on your behalf, and we have done that in so many of our clients who wants to stay with their current lender. Now, the reason to refinance and either internal or external, it's because, for example, you are in the interest-only repayments period, right? And it expires after 5 years or 3 years. Now, that means your revert rate after the interest only period is higher, right? So the revert rate, that's what you want to know, if your revert rate is higher, because it goes to variable rate. Sometimes it goes to just the standard variable rate. Now, unlike other lenders like CBA or ANZ Bank, when we launched the application, there was already a revert rate past the interest only period. But that revert rate may be still not acceptable to you with this current interest market, right? The current interest rate, which is high. We can negotiate that revert rate. Now, that is that is when you refinance internally. You can negotiate the revert rate. However, the revert rate that we normally negotiate is also subject to make sure the 6 months you've been paying your commitment on time. They will consider that. And also the loan valuation ratio and the loan amount. These are the factors that the bank would consider.
What about servicing? You have to show them your pay?
No servicing is required to negotiate for the revert rate.
Make sure you got sufficient.
Because I have one that I did with ANZ Bank. I can't negotiate for the rate because it's a hit and miss the repayments for the last 6 months. So 6 months, you need to be good boy or good girl. And then the loan valuation ratio as well. We need to look at it. So that will be the internal refinance, right? Now, sometimes you can't do the internal refinance because you have been on the interest only period, say 10 years. Some bank can do 10 years. After 10 years, you need to start paying the loan so they don't extend it to you. So we go for an external refinance. With external refinance, sometimes the rate is even better because the incoming lender would classify you as new money, new acquisition. So better rate. So look, often happens the new acquisition, the external refinance has a higher interest, a lower interest rate, higher discount rate. So when we go for external refinance, there's also the cashback that can defray the expenses of refinancing externally.
Or deposit towards the next one.
Maybe just to defray the expenses for registration of mortgage, registration of title. So we do negotiate a lot also with the new lender. We can give you a comparison rate as well. So that is a chance for you to also look at what's out there with the external refinance.
I guess being able to go as well from principal and interest back to interest only, which would be the biggest.
So it will be difficult to do internal refinance where you are in principal and interest repayments and then you go back to interest only. That is called credit critical. If it is a credit critical, it needs to be reassessed.
But if you go to an external refinance and you're with ANZ and you go to refinance with CBA, you'd start at 30-year period again.
You reset. Reset. So we also there are often when we do the refinance, we're only pulling one loan. So for example, you have 5 loans with NAB. We're refinancing one of these loans to say ANZ, and then ANZ said, it doesn't service because their loan with NAB has a higher interest rate. So it impacts, right, for those loans that we're not refinancing. So we negotiate with National Australia Bank, for example, and says, can you give us a better rate for these remaining loans? And then sometimes it can make it servicing.
Over there, cool.
You can save, like we did one for a 700,000 loan with NAB, and then it was even a mix of 80 and 90. It was like, this is before the increase of the interest rate. It was a saving for that person around $300 a month.
Okay, beautiful.
And
then I guess some examples, like you just gave one example, but what sort of
discount?
What sort of things are you experiencing at the moment recently with investors refinancing?
Well, we never slow down, right? We still keep doing what we were doing. Now, this is a good thing about negotiating the discount rate. Like ANZ, for example, can give you 2.95% discount off the standard variable. CBA can give you 2.7. Now, the good thing about this, if the discount is higher, 2.85, 2.9, it depends on the loan as well and the LVR. If you can get a 2.92, can you just imagine in October, when interest goes down,
yeah.
say if it goes down to like 5%, you could be just paying 2% because that discount of standard variable, that's for the life of the loan.
Exactly.
As long as you stay with,
you're paying nothing on the interest rate.
So it could be a chance for you to really look at like, what is my, you don't only look at the net effect of the interest rate, you could also look at the discount of the standard variable rate.
Yeah. So you won't necessarily see it today,
but you can see it in the future.
In the future,
can you just imagine at the end of the year, if the interest goes down and then you get a 2.95 discount, and if the interest rate goes down by 6%, you could be paying 3% only, or 3 point something. So I always encourage people to make sure that the discount of their standard variable rate is high.
Do you have any examples, like, I don't know what you prepped for the night to talk about tonight, but do you have any examples, or I guess we always talk about pulling out equity, right? We talk about pulling out equity for people. Are people still being able to pull out equity if they have equity there? Like, people
we're still pulling out equity. I mean, the properties that they would from you.
What would be some of the equity recently? Like,
recently, we have like pulled out 60,000, enough deposit for the property that they're going to purchase from you. We're still pulling out equity. We pulled out equity in any lenders.
Constantly. There's a name. The person was in our room beforehand, right? One of our staff. Literally, I was doing a podcast and I said to this person, the property settled that day, and I'd already spoken to one of the team, and there was about 25 grand there in equity, and I only settled 24 hours before. Not that we pulled it out, but it's just like we did a bit of a test to see what was there. And equity still very rampant out there.
Very. And also, like, pulling out equity is also like, if you want to continue your journey to become a professional investor. And I mean, interest rate shouldn't stop you as long as you're able to service. There are still things that you can do in terms of minimize your expenses, right? And I mean, then you can still pay your commitments.
Cool. And what other things are you doing at the moment for investors like you?
I just realized, Nathan, I was just looking at it, for every loans that we do one is self-employed. So we've been really having a lot of self-employed. Now, currently we're doing a lot of self-employed that financials are not ready. When the financials are not ready, how does the bank ascertain your income? So we can provide the two buses, trading account, letter from the accountant to confirm your income.
So low doc, no doc.
Alt doc.
Sorry?
It's called alt doc. I think it's alternative.
Okay.
Yeah. That is only because you haven't done your financials yet. But it's a higher interest rate. However, you're only there temporarily. Once you've completed your financials, we can then apply within the same bank, if you don't want to get out from them, within the same bank to assess you in a full doc scenario.
Cool. And what about, like, there's a lot of people out there that have started a new job, or just become a contractor, or just started a business. Is there any options for those guys?
There are always options. Say I'm an IT person, and then I want to be self-employed, and obviously I don't have the financials because I've just been self-employed for 6 months. I don't have a 12-month set of financials. So what we can do, there is a lender there that, we can use your previous income when you were a PAYG, as long as it's the same industry. The group, we look at the group certificate from the last employment, and that will be the basis of.
I don't think there's a lot of people that realize that these things are out there. So
there's a lot of people don't realize. A lot of business or self-employed people don't realize that you can't pay off. There's a business debt consolidation for business debts.
Okay, well, how does that work?
Well, using obviously the residential,
using equity
you can, but some banks, the main lenders, they don't like business loans because it becomes commercial. But there are second tier that can,
Cool. And you talked about beforehand, you're reviewing investors' portfolios with their existing banks. working out if it's cheaper, seeing if there's cheaper options. I know that the team has been saying to me recently that because I always joke about second-tier lenders, the second-tier lenders and the third-tier lenders. I'm like, okay, if we're not taken to the big four bank, we're taken to a shit bank, right? And
they're not shit bank, they're
exactly
very
right.
Good bank.
I always joke about that, right?
Yeah.
But the second-tier lenders do have some better products now.
Oh, there are so
banks,
There are a lot of things that a second-tier lender can do where the main lenders can't, right? The primary lenders, the main four banks. Now, second-tier lender, they can do, as I said, business debts. They can consolidate that, and the way they assess your income, like bonuses, commission, overtime, they assess it at 100%. Whereas CBA, ANZ, they could probably just shed it to 80%. Yeah. So First Mac, for example, overtime, commission, and bonus, they commission overtime, they assess it 100%. So that improves your servicing. There's also a second-tier lender. I think First Mac again, they're very good with negative gearing. The way they calculate the negative gearing is normally in a normal bank, and if your interest rate that they give you is like 4%, the negative gearing on that is based on a 4%. And yet you're assessed on the stress rate. Whereas with First Mac, for example, they don't use the actual interest rate that they offer you, but they will use the stress rate, which is like up to 8%. To do the negative gear. Sometimes it can impact like 400,000 more borrowing power.
So if someone is out there thinking I can't service or whatever, the broker may not be looking at all these aspects, so they may be going directly to the bank and not being able to see that just because the bank says no, or the second bank says no, but there's hundreds of lenders out there that can lend.
You see, we always make it as for me, it's a challenge if I presented with this scenario, and I feel like, okay, I think there is a way for this one. We are not, as Nathan was saying, like a bit charity, because we spend so much time looking at every lender. We look at Resimac, we look at First Mac, Pepper, Liberty, all the main lenders, right? Everything that we have in our panel, we exaggerate that. We'll make sure that we have workshopped this loan. I mean, often, right? We have this client, he said, oh, I was told by my broker I can't service. And then, okay, let's look at your portfolio. Most of his loans is under the trust. No, he's borrowing under his name. I said, oh, this is easy. And he goes, why? I said, we don't have to take the trust debts, right? Because ANZ, Me Bank, Bankwest, if it's under the trust, you don't have to take the trust debt. You don't have to take the income as well. So servicing is just based on your personal commitments.
So if someone had no properties under their personal name and they bought 2 properties under a trust, and then they go to the second trust, they don't have to declare the other trust.
No, because it's individual. The debts on the company, as long as a different trust name.
So if I bought 200 properties, right, I put 2 properties on the first trust, 2 properties on the second trust, 2 properties on the third trust, then I'd technically have no debt. Just a random question. Would that be fair?
So if you buy the next property under the different trust, I'm not taking the debts on those other trusts.
So I'd have a claim for credit. So if everyone just buys under
you possibly can. You can. And we have done it so many times. We have done it. Remember, you text messaged me which lender, and you said, I feel like you're questioning why that lender. I have to text you the reason why we
I like to know these things.
So there's always possibilities in every scenarios.
Cool. Anything else for this slide, Rose? Or, no? Next slide. How can a homeowner refinance to become an investor?
Well, if you have a home, your PPR, that's your sole property, and yet you want to start buying for investment and you don't have any deposit, you don't have any cash, because it's all put in the home loan. So what we can do, we can harvest the equity in that house. When we structure the loan, we structure it as split loans. So the first split is the home loan, obviously. The second split is for investment purposes. You have to split it because they get 2 different purposes.
And then you can claim the investment purpose for tax.
Yes, and it's easy as well for accounting purposes. Like if they send it to their accountant, they say like, this is the investment portion and this is for my home. So, and then we use that. I mean, we do it all the time.
Yeah.
We use it then to purchase more investment properties. And then if those investment properties that you purchase, we can always harvest equity from those as well. Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So I've got a random question. Like, how many people would come to you, like, say if we had a percentage, right? How many would come to you with a property that they own already? And how many people would have no property just going into investment property for the first time, roughly? Get to split it up.
So renting for their PPR?
Yeah, like they just don't have one, they live with family or they're renting or something like that.
I guess if they got nothing at all except a savings, right?
Yeah, how many people would do that? Percentage?
Percentage for us is probably 30%. 30%, yeah.
And then how many people would have a principal place of residence roughly?
35.
Yeah, and then they might have an investment.
Yeah.
So let's say out of the 35% of people, I'm just trying to drill it down, right? The 35% of people come to us. How many of those people would have 50 grand deposit or that have no deposit?
Most of them has only very minimal deposit, and some of them don't want to use it because that's their buffer for their commitments. So what we do is just continuously harvest equities on their existing properties.
Between say 50 and 70% of so out of 100 people, 35 people own a house that they live in, and then out of that 35 people, say 60, 70%, something like that, would have no money, but you're able to harvest the equity.
The equity, yeah.
So maybe like 15 people, 20 people out of 100 have nothing but their house, and then you can get them 2 deposits, 3 deposits, 4 deposits.
That's right. And that's what we've been doing, right? You know, like that's how Zinger, how we structure the loan. And basically, really, we are your tools to get there for your, for your investment journey. And
without the finance, you can't buy the properties and add it to the portfolio.
Yeah, and Zinger is unique compared to some other brokering firm because with Zinger, most of the properties that our client has are not that expensive, right? And we reliant on the equity to release for the next investment, right? And it can be done. It can be done. I mean, you look at like one equity release can buy you 2 purchase of properties. I mean, very common. And then 45 days later, we revalue the property and release more equity.
More equity for the next one.
Yeah.
And how many people would come to us that might have a kid, right? We down at the numbers of that, it doesn't really matter, right? People talk about gifting the money, right? So the parents want to help the kid out, right? So you might have someone watching this that could have a kid that's 20 wanting to get ahead, or there might be a 20-year-old watching this going, how can I get the next deposit? How easy is it to get, refinance mum and dad's house and give the kid a deposit so then they can go and buy? And then,
it's called security guarantor, right? So
there's 2 ways around it. There's the guarantor, or there's just topping up, pulling out the equity.
Yeah. So whichever way you look at it, say for example, I don't have anything, I want to purchase, I have no deposit, my mom and dad has a security, they are not working, they're pensioners, and what you need to be careful with those because the bank doesn't want to be in a 60 minutes in case this person can't pay, right? So we need to assess also the parents to ensure like, okay, this is your only property, you may not be able to.
The risk.
The risk, it's high risk. So sometimes if the parents are still working, all they do is to increase the loan, pulling out the equity and gifted it to their kids. And then, or if not, just basically if they're not working, as long as the parents has other properties other their own home, they've got other properties like an investment, it's very, very possible. They're just a bit nervous when the parents are no longer working and that's their sole property.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Cool. And I don't know if we've got this in the slide deck. It's probably not even in here, but what's the next slide? What's the next slide we're going to chat about here before I go to it? Actually, this, we might be able to talk about it here, right? How many people they may not be able to service, they may not be able to do other things? I know the answer myself, right? I'll share it. Like people might feel like they can't do something, but then no one's realised, or they may not have realised that that they've got super, right?
Yeah, that's an alternative way of purchasing a property. I mean, really, superannuation. I am so into superannuation. Now, that is, some of them think that you cannot, if you only have 150 in your self-managed super fund, that you are not able to
get a loan,
or not able to purchase a property. I think there will be, I think Red One, our accountant, always asks for statement advice from the financial advisor to ensure that, you know,
you have the ability to set it up.
You have to set it up, and we can do 20% deposit. It can be interest only if you choose to. And
it's a very different beast to the personal properties that people have, but
because it's a limited recourse.
Non-recourse loans.
But
a lot of people don't realise, like I speak to investors every day, and I might be like, how much do you have in your super? And they're like, oh, I don't know, right? It's like, well, some commie has your money and they've got their grubby mitts on it, they're investing, doing whatever they can, and they're not really the brightest tool in the shed. Well, you can take that 150, 200 grand, 300 grand, however much you've got in your super. If you don't have enough, you could partner with a spouse, you could partner with a sibling or a parent, and be able to set up a self-managed super fund and be able to buy properties under that and leverage debt. And
it doesn't impact your servicing for your personal mortgages.
Okay, cool. So there's an option there as well.
There is an option there. And Nathan, can I just touch about self-employed people? There is an alternative way of how the bank, it's called simple income verification. Often I get asked, and it happens every time, often I get asked, can you speak to my accountant, or can you tell me, I am preparing my tax return, I am preparing my financials, before I'll finalize it, what can you suggest to ensure that I still have the ability to borrow for, for my next purchase? So I always say, like, when you do your financial statements, you ensure that if you are getting income from that company, I think it's probably better if you just put it as salaries and wages. Once you start putting as director fees or director's allowance, the bank doesn't like it, because obviously they need 2 years of that, and even 2 years they shade it to 80%. Now, the difference between getting salaries and wages from your own company versus the franking credits, the dividends, or director's allowance, whatever it is that that's why the accountant doesn't like the salaries and wages, because what happens is, for every time you do your BUS statements, you need to declare that salaries and wages. There's also the PAYG installment, right? And then towards the end of the year, when they want to pay more to you, they make it as a dividend or franking credits. But the problem with that, right, you should be able to determine from your business, like, if it's going okay, from the, you get history already. You might as well do the salaries and wages, because at the end of the day, you get penalized by, not being able to borrow, because you've wasted that much money just having those dividends and franking credits. And and also sometimes, if you have a trust, the distribution of the trust, right? Sometimes it's distributed to the children, and so it just limit the
If you, I guess, in short, what Rose is saying, if you have money coming through and you're not paying interest on things, if you're not paying the tax on things because you're trying to show that you've got no income, well, then the bank's going to look at you as if you're living on the food line, on the poverty line, and not be able to lend you based upon that. So I guess that also solidifies the importance of having all the people on the same page and on the right team, because yes, you're deriving money from your business, but it's how it's structured as far as the tax back, like negative gearing credits and stuff like that. So some banks will factor in that you've got depreciation, some will factor in the negative gearing and calculate the cash flow, while other banks won't take those things on. And if you're trying to claim everything and take every penny off the table when it comes to tax, well, then you'll be hurting yourself. And it may be, you want to be more aggressive for a certain period of time, that you might, you know, go, okay, well, I want to show that money flowing through into my tax returns for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also another way, the simple income verification. If you're a self-employed, you're getting a regular income, you're drawing salaries every week, you might as well issue yourself a pay slip, right?
Yeah.
For the next 6 months. So when we apply for the loan, we don't need to look at the financials. We only need to look at the pay slips that, you know, as long as you get salary credits, that it says that this is your income, it goes into your bank account. We were able to demonstrate that. They'll take the salaries, the pay slip. Now, for example, with CBA, they'll take 6 months at least, right? And then provide a pay slip. We'll look at the salary credits, but there's also a letter from the accountant to say that this is a sustainable income in the future. Yeah. So ANZ Bank do the same using the pay slip. So if you don't need to, you know, so much hassle in providing financials, pay slips can help.
Cool. This is the other, we're on the next slide now, Rose. I just realised we didn't go through this one. After you have a few investment properties, how can you keep buying properties? Or what options are there? We talked about just buying in your super as a potential. I can see there's some questions coming through from that. If you guys are watching this and you have got questions, put your questions in the question section and we'll answer them a little bit later on.
So again, to continue your investment journey, I think you need to ensure also, like, you have to have discipline in your, I'm looking at the servicing point of view, right?
Yeah.
Because you need to ensure that your property, your commitment, your expenses are minimized, right? Not over, because say for example, like it could be like groceries overinflated, entertainment overinflated, and the bank look at that, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, to continue your journey, servicing is very, very important, right?
Yeah.
Secondly, obviously, the deposit that we need to do. So it can be, the deposit can be in the form of equity from your existing properties. Yes, so that's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Now, in the event, for example, we have one client, for example, he's got a big investment property, like the property is worth, like, say, 750,000. And the rental return is only 3.8%.
Yeah.
It's pretty low.
Yeah.
So remember, we do this, the security swap, portability.
Yeah.
Now, servicing for that person was a bit difficult.
Yeah.
So to have to, you propose to have 3 securities on that property?
I'm doing one at the moment. I don't know which client it is, but and we won't talk about it on the live, like the specific name. But I've done it quite a few times where someone might have the 700 grand or $1 million property, and they don't realise that they can sell that property, keep the loan open, and then acquire new assets. So I've got one at the moment where someone's selling for about 750, and there's another bloke that had, you know which one when I say the earthquake house, right? The earthquake house person, right? That house is going to get sold, and then we're going to do a security swap on that. So you might have a property for 700, you sell it off, and then you can go buy 4 properties for 150 and replace them with it. You could buy 3 properties at 200,000 or 250K and replace it with it. So that way you would have a higher level of cash flow flowing through. The lady that has 19 properties, she had a property that she sold in Melbourne, and she replaced it with 3 or 4 properties. And
we have one at the moment that's wanting to do 3.
That person, there's 2 duplexes. We're replacing 1 property with two duplex pairs, so that's 4 rental incomes plus a third property. So it'd be 5 sets of rental income. So a property getting 750 grand for a sale, a loan at like 500,000, something like that. We're replacing that with 5 sets of tenants. So instead of getting $400 a week, you're now getting 5 sets of $300 per week. You're getting $1,500 per week. You're now $1,000 better off cash flow wise each week, and you're able to continue your journey without obtaining any new debt, without asking for a new loan product. You can just make an adjustment to your existing.
So what it means is that you are maintaining the same account, you're maintaining the same loan amount, but yet you're increasing your rental income.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Because, that is also one way of continue to have more investment properties. And again, as I said, like having a good property portfolio, having a good properties like, you know, the B.Invested specials, like, you know, the capital growth on that property helps. Helps the,
if we take the DeLorean, hop in with Marty McFly and go back 5-10 years ago in Back to the Future and go back into the past, we can't predict which suburb, which property is going to outperform in the specific time frame. But if we have a look over 10, 15, 20 years, like you just see they'll all go up. But sometimes one property may massively outperform another location. Like we've seen everyone on the Gold Coast, we literally bought thousands, like 5, 6, 7,000 properties in the Gold Coast. They've all gone up so much. Now we're at a point where we're going, okay, we can sell those properties off. Someone else comes in and buys them, and then we keep that loan open. We then go and buy 3 more of those properties or 4 more of those properties, and restructuring the portfolio like that, which I'm not a big fan of selling. But if you've got something that isn't performing as well moving into the future, like, it might have gone up 3 times already, or it may not have done anything, that you might be sitting on something. People come to us all the time, they've got these properties they can't do anything with, or it's holding them back. It's like, okay, if you got rid of that, what would your position look like? And that's where you can tidy up your position by doing a thing called a security swap, or a portable loan, where you can port that loan to a different property.
That's why it's very important that you always, if you're an investor, always check your portfolio, right? Is it still relevant? Is it still performing? I mean, if it's not, if you even have a doubt as to how you're going to structure it, or is it still, I mean, always call us, because we can help you. It could be like if you want to release the property, we can, you know, and replace it, as I said, like the property swap, if that's the case, and you know, it might help your cash flow.
Any other options?
Really, just, you know, equities, self-money super fund, like, you know.
The day that the penny dropped for me as an investor, that got me from like 6, 7 properties to more, was at a point when I remember that I couldn't service for a loan. It was like I wanted a house, and it was like 200,000, 220,000 for a house, and I'm like, I want a loan. No, you can't get it. Okay, a bit upset. But then I was like, can I get this little one that's cheap? And it's like 130 grand. It's like, yeah, that's fine. Get another one. It's like, hang on a second, I've got more purchase, but I didn't realize that there was more cash flow coming through. And it was at that point for me, going back all these years ago, that I realized it wasn't about what I wanted that was important. What I wanted was a specific house, specific property, whatever, but it's what the bank wants. And if you can think about what does the bank require from me to be able to give me more money so I can go and buy more, you should always be thinking about how is the step that I'm taking going to get me closer and closer to that goal, and keep the bank happier with giving me millions and millions of dollars worth of loans. And that's very, very important, very crucial, I believe.
And also, like, a lot of, there might be some, you need to, Zinger is very good at this one, like ensuring that you're in the security before committing to purchasing this property. And if we tend to launch that with CBA, for example, we need to look at the postcode, make sure like they can lend with that security.
Correct.
So that's also important, that broker knows where to lodge the application.
Because some banks won't lend you in a specific postcode, specific location, specific type of property. So it always surprises me, because some banks will say, no, you can't do it, and you go to a different bank. And if we look back in Corona time, at the start of 2020, the Gold Coast, like the CBA would not lend in the Gold Coast. It's the #1 performing place across Australia at the moment. It's the Gold Coast. And they would not lend in the Gold Coast.
Water Island, or was it?
Anywhere like Clear.
Clear Island.
It's like Chevron Island, Southport, Surfers Paradise. They weren't lending, and it was only for a period of like 6 months or so. But they wanted a 30% deposit, not a 90% loan or a 80% loan. They had to have a 70% or less. And that changes from time to time, and you just don't know until you go and explore. And it's like, that's really weird. CBA doesn't take it, but ANZ, Westpac, NAB, any of the other ones are taking the property. So
I think sometimes when they're saturated in the area, maybe that's why when they
could. It's happened in Parramatta in Sydney, 2150 postcode. It's terrible.
Harris Park.
Harris Park, all those suburbs surround it. So how can you save thousands of dollars by refinancing, Rose? Like, can you give us some examples about?
Look, as I said, like, interest rate is the first, right? Ensuring that you have, I mean, look, there are, if you are in, I'll touch on the investor's point, right? an investor wants to maximize their cash flow, maximize the tax benefit. I'm not an expert of tax, but those are the two things that they want to look at if you're an investor: right? Cash flow, maximize tax benefits, and then to save dollars by refinancing is that for a better interest rate, right? Definitely for better interest rate.
Yeah.
And also when I say maximizing the cash flow, if you saturate with your current lender, you can no longer do the interest-only period. That means we need to refi externally so that then the loan can be amortized again reset from day one, right? Yeah. Not continuing for the rest of the thing. Yeah. So those are, like refinancing. There's also cashback. There's a lot on offer at the moment, $4,000 or $5,000. Now, for me, I don't really look at cashback as for me it's incidental.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at cashback as a bonus because then it can defray some of your expenses. However, I've always looked at the end of the day is your goal is to purchase another property. So first thing we look at is the who can lend you.
Yeah.
Right?
I always think about the loan product is most important, right? Like the loan product, how is it going to perform over the next 30 years if you get trapped in that loan? Would you want to be stuck in that loan? Yeah. How will it perform for you? And not all loan products are the same at each bank. And it's
that's right.
Which bank has the right loan product for me to get me to that next level.
So sometimes refinancing can save you a lot of money. We have one that is difference of 1% in interest rate. 1%, that's a lot of money.
1%, $2 million worth of loan, that's 20 grand a year.
Yeah.
$400 a week. That's 2 days a week for someone's wage on an average wage. That's 1 day a week if someone's on a 6-figure salary. That's 20% of someone getting 100 grand income coming through. Very important to look at these things and factor in.
Yeah, I think that's why it is very important to look at your property portfolio, your loan portfolio. Say if you can do better somewhere else, or stay with the bank and then negotiate for. I mean, the retention at the moment for your existing lender, they're very aggressive. So you could probably negotiate. But you look at some banks. If I say like, okay, we're gonna refinance you to other lender, the retention of that lender would always say, oh, don't leave. I can get your interest rate better. I can match what they offer you, and I could also throw another 2,000.
So speak to your bank. Like, you don't have to go to Zinger and say, hey, speak to my bank. Like, if you want to look at what other options are out there, speak to Rose and speak to the team, but go to your existing bank and just ask them. You could just be watching this today. There's 100 odd people on it, so you could have just logged in, been like, okay, what are they talking about? If the one thing that you could do today, just by watching this, you could just call up your bank tomorrow and say, hey, I've been offered a better rate elsewhere. My broker's telling me that I can refinance, or another bank has told me I can get a cheaper rate. I don't want to go through all the headache of that. They're saying that they're going to give me all this 5 grand and all this sort of stuff, 2 grand, 4 grand as a refinance fee. I'd prefer to stay with you guys. What can you do with the interest rate before I make that decision? You normally get shifted off to their retention team, and that's where you have the discussion with them, and then they'll come back to you, review your rates, and say, hey, we can give you 0.25% off, 0.5% off, whatever the case may be. So
even better negotiation is that you get asked to do it, and I say, okay, you want to stay with that lender. Let's look at what this lender can offer you. If I can get a better loan for this, I have an evidence that I'll be given this interest rate. You can present that to your
bank,
your current lender and say, hey, I get an evidence that I could offer with this one. I mean, look, we get nothing out of it, but we are here to help you to make sure like you get you stay with a bank where you want, but with a better interest rate.
Yeah. Anything else on this slide?
No.
I think this was the slide that I was going to talk about today, Rose, which is how sitting and waiting can be holding you back. A lot of people out there in the market will be sitting there saying, hey, I'm going to wait until interest rates drop, right? I'm going to be waiting until if I can see if I can get bargains, etc. And it's the funniest thing, because we've still got people waiting for 2020 for the prices to drop, right? And they've doubled, they've tripled, they've done all those sort of things. We're looking at a market now which is not like, things continuously change. So firstly, if you were waiting 6 months ago for the market to change and for bargains to come out, bargains haven't arrived, right? Just fundamentally how it's working out that the bargains aren't there. I know in one aspect, if you're looking at two-dimensionally, that sounds like a great idea. But if you're looking at a multi-dimensional, there's so many different aspects which isn't showing the bargains there. But let's assume that you did get the bargain, right, today. But 6 months ago, you could have bought the property, but today you can't buy the property because you can't service the debt, right? Right? So there's that aspect of it. The second aspect of it is that it just may not come. The third aspect of it is that, yes, you know, interest rates might be going up, but people haven't factored in that rents are going up as well. So those properties are becoming more and more profitable, and they're becoming more appealing because you're getting a better return on your cash than having it in any other sort of investment. So people are now shifting their money into certain property markets, which are providing very good yields and very healthy double digit. Nothing else is paying double digit out there. And if you can get a locked in rental income that's double digit, then happy days. So there's that aspect of it that people aren't factoring in the rent. The third aspect, the fourth aspect, and the most important one, is that if you're wanting to build a property portfolio of one property, well then sure, right? Go and wait, see what can happen. But if you're wanting to build a portfolio of 10, 15, 20 properties, you don't just get 10 properties in a day, right? You have to buy the property, you have to settle the property. You have to go back to the property and pull the equity out. Then you use the equity to go buy the next property. Then you settle that and you go back and you pull out the equity. That period might take 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, right? So if it takes you 4 years to be able to go build that portfolio out, or 3 years, or 2 years, or 10 years, who cares about potentially, maybe, hopefully 6 months, 12 months later I can find a bargain, because there's probably 10 other reasons why you're going to get screwed and you're going to lock yourself out of the market. And for me, I've bought properties, and Rose knows this. Everybody in my fucking life has told me, including Rose, hey Nathan, slow down, right? Everybody has told me at times to slow down, right? At some point, because I just love pushing myself. And it doesn't matter if it's in the middle of the GFC, the middle of Corona, it doesn't matter when it was. I see the opportunity, I want to take advantage of it. And that's how I've been able to build my portfolio. I've never turned to Rose, Rose, in 20 years, have you ever heard me sit here and go, oh, I've said that we're going to go to a biggest depression in 2018. I've said all these bad things that are going to happen, and they have happened in multiple different sort of ways. But I've seen them, but I've never been like, I'm going to wait. I've bought and signed contracts, came to Rose, pestered her, tried to get her to fix up my position of buying the property and getting a loan for it. No matter what, I want to be continuously moving forward and building my asset base.
Whatever is the economic situation, you never stop.
I never stop. I keep buying, and I continue to load the assets, because I know the first important thing in the last 14 years of me running B.Invested is that no one's ever called me up, and no one's ever called Rose up in 20 years. I know this without even asking her the question, but no one's ever called up and said, hey Nathan, I'm so happy I bought a property in 2010 for 200 grand. I sold it in 2012. I only held it for a year. I made $100,000. I made 50% on my property. It went from 200 to 300,000. I pulled out $100,000. I only put $30,000 as a deposit into the deal. I made 100 grand. I am a legend, right? These people on the day will feel like they've made good money, but you've just sold off the asset. And most people say is, I wish I didn't sell that thing. It's now worth $1 million. I wish I bought more of those things when I could have, right? So it's, when you look back, yes, you can look at something, you know, two-dimensionally, but without looking at all the other aspects, all the other important factors, you know. Yeah, so sitting there waiting and wanting to do things. I've sold properties. I actually sold a property today and it settled, right? So it settled the property. I bought it for 50 grand, right? I sold it for 200. I bought it like 10 years ago. No, it was out in Moree, right? Moree.
Yeah.
And I got all these.
These were one of your first properties.
No, they were probably like after I had a dozen. I had all the stuff in Sydney and that, and then I started buying some of those things. I'm actually going to do a podcast on that journey to do these things. I bought them, I've quadrupled my money. I put in like $5,000. Literally, I put in $5,000 to buy this thing. Not even $2,500 deposit. I paid $50,000. I got a 95% LVR back in the day.
Yeah.
$2,500. Rose, do this loan for me. You know, rented for $100 a week. Now it rents for $350 a week. Sold it for $200,000. I just couldn't be bothered dealing with admin. Right? I literally couldn't be bothered with going, oh, there's a bill to pay. Oh, let's chase up that property manager because I don't have a property manager. I don't have Blink in that area. So when I look at these sort of properties, like occasionally I'll sell stuff. I've sold like a half dozen properties last year when I bought my dream house. Yeah. I love my house. So I took a big photo of it today because it looks cool. I've got all the veggie gardens being put in. Rose, you got to come over and check it out. It looks very different than it did
I'm waiting for the invitation.
So you come over whenever, right? But then I sold those properties. Am I going to look back in 5 years' time and go, fuck, I wish I didn't sell them? 100% I am. But I chose to sell them because it was the right thing for me to do on the day of doing that. And there's so many people that are just like scared and they're living by fear. And it's obvious, people watch the news, right? People live by fear. But, you know, you can sit there and take action. You can sit there and do nothing. None of that changes my life. None of that changes your life. It's only going to impact your life. Make sure that sorry, I've got to have some water. Make sure whatever choice you're taking or doing is going to be getting you closer and closer to your goal. If you don't have clarity on your goal, then it becomes harder and you can have those conversations happening on the shoulder. The monkey in your head going, hey, you know, don't do this, or what about this, or what about that? But I know the world stands aside for the person who knows where they're going. And if you have clarity on those goals, it's like, okay, yes, this step makes perfect sense. I've looked at the best case, the worst case, and all the different scenarios in between, then make those decisions. And a lot of people are making decisions they shouldn't be, right? A lot of people are doing deals they shouldn't be buying into. I see it every day of the week, right? But they make those decisions and they're stuck with those decisions, and then they got to do work and live with those decisions. But, you know, having clarity and making sure that you're buying the right assets that are going to take you through the next cycle to get you to where you need to be are very, very important. And you can sit there, procrastinate, analyst paralysis. You know, I've seen them for 2 decades now. Rose has seen it happen for 2 decades. I've seen people that have had so much potential, don't do things. People sitting there still waiting from 2020. No bad, like I just say it and just laughing, but I know there's still a lot of people that are like, I really fucked up back in 2020 because I didn't buy, and you know, just it's going to happen again. History repeats itself. Rose, back to you.
How we manage complicated finance applications, right? Almost all the deals almost every deals that we do are complicated. Okay, we have, as I said, we always have an option, and there was one case where financials are not ready, and yet they want to purchase more properties. He's asset rich in terms of he's got few investment properties, just couldn't borrow anymore because his financials are not ready. So we lodged it with Resimac. I got a good BDM with Resimac. Yep. Shout out to Resimac. So all the application, all we need, we did the bus statements, the last 2 buses, and then they look at it and we get it approved. Okay. Yeah. So there is an option, but yes, higher interest rate. However, when his financials are ready, we can then change the structure into full doc application. Even this, you know, stay with Resimac, and we can do the full doc. So that's only temporary. Right? Yeah. And then we did the self-managed super fund. That's also challenging because she only have 130,000 on her self-managed super fund.
You've got one going through at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, 130,000, and we're able to purchase property at 20% deposit. Like, obviously, the purchase price is relevant in terms of, you know, how much deposit you need for So we have that. We have a self-employed that we did the simple income verification through payslips. Yeah, and that was really good. We were able to do that. We have a client that has multiple trust accounts wanting to purchase under their name. Their current mortgage broker says, no, you can't service and that sort of thing, but they didn't realize there's product there that ANZ has that product, BankWest has that product, MeBank has that product, where the income and liabilities from the trust, we don't have to take that into account, right?
Yeah.
And then we also have like the servicing is a problem, but then we go with First Mac, who's got a very generous calculator, very generous calculator. I love First Mac. I really do. I mean, I have to appreciate. They've done a lot of help to us.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were able to investors really that's investor friendly. Yeah. And
they all have their pros and cons. Like they all have their pros and cons. Some are good for servicing. Some are good with evaluations.
Yeah. Me Bank is also very good. Understated. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every deal is a challenge for us because nowadays the servicing is an issue. Now, again, I'll mention First Mac, who doesn't have, they don't have DTI, debt to income ratio. They don't take that into account. Some lenders, the main lenders, once you hit the DTI of 7 or whatever, then they said, I can't lend you.
Yeah.
And so most of our deals are complex because we're dealing with professional investors where they have on average 4, 6, or even 10 properties or more. I mean, just imagine how much work we have to do to just look at everything, right?
Yeah.
The collection of documents, and then it is very more work, I guess, involved, but we don't mind. I mean, we're learning as well as, know.
And that's the thing. Like, one thing I've noticed with the team is that there's like a dozen, 13 staff, 14 staff, however many staff are in the team. Once one staff member does something, they'll all collaborate about it and talk about
all
it.
The time.
You've got not just one broker that's dealing with the file, you've got like 10 of them that are on the file, or 15 of them, how many you got in the team.
Yeah, so. And we always ask like, oh, did you encounter such thing like this? I said, oh, I know that one. I've spoken to this bank and they can do this, and then and we have, as you can see, almost every week we have lenders coming to workshop with us.
Yeah.
We have CBA Commonwealth Bank next week. Yeah. By the way, I'm a platinum broker for CBA. Let me remind you.
Rose loves throwing that in. How many platinum brokers are there out there?
It was 70 when I first came in. I don't know how many now. That was a year ago. So maybe it has increased now.
Maybe 70, 75 people. Yeah. The top brokers, there are thousands of them in the country.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, we have National Australia Bank. Last week, we have another National Australia Bank, the business one. We have Resimac coming in. Yeah. We have, there's a lot of lenders coming to workshop with us. So, which is really great. That means we're up to date.
Yeah, with products and
servicing and have a good relationship with the BDM that can help us if we get.
I remember one of them. I came into the meeting to chat with them, and they wanted to take the team out for lunch. I never go and meet with them, but they were talking about like they changed something with the servicing, and they changed something with the valuation process of how they charge the valuations and how they don't charge it X amount, and it's constantly changing.
That's right. I got one lender today rang me and says, "Oh, on Monday, what are you doing?" I said, "We're busy. We can't accommodate any lenders." No, I'm just dropping to bring you some lunch, like a pizza or something. I said, "Oh man," it's they're just we have good. What I'm trying to say is we have good relationship with these banks. Yeah.
So structuring the loans to fit their goals, like what sort of other examples, any other examples there, like as far as like sometimes people can't service because they've got credit cards or other debts, or like is it something you could do to package up that debt, consolidate it?
So obviously with self-employed, I've already touched in terms of what they should put in their individual tax return or whatever. No, there is also one that I want to touch, the Amex charge card. I mean, a lot of self-employed has that.
Yeah.
The problem with that is there's no limit, there's no credit limit.
Yeah.
The way the bank look at it is that this is in general, right? With Amex charge card, because there is no limit, they'll look at the last 3 months of expenditure in that Amex card.
Yeah.
Even if you pay that on every end of the month, right? You pay to set it to zero,
Still
but still they look at like, then they see the expenses for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Some of them they're not used for business, so it adds up to your hem or whatever. So Amex card, I'm always like, oh man, I go like, shit, this is gonna throw the servicing because of the expenses. Right?
What about car loans and personal loans?
Car loans and personal loans. So I mean, look, especially if the car loan is amortized only for 3 years or something, so the repayments is very high. If you have the equity, we can also include that in debt consolidation.
Yeah. Cool. I'm going to go to a few questions here.
Yeah, I think so.
We've got some slides. We've got another couple. We've got another slide. We've got some questions coming through. 3 questions through. I'll ask Rose a couple of them. Here's a question here from Kylie. Yeah, I can read it this far, Rose. Still, can the which one is? Can a full loan amount be used for super? Oh, there's a few questions to this person. Can a full loan amount be used from super? Yes, you can go up to like 80%.
80% LVR.
Yeah. And can a property be purchased with just husband super fund for joint ownership?
Whoever is in the self-managed super fund, you also have to remember self-managed super fund is the borrower, and then you get a custodian trust where the property is hold on to, right? Yeah. Now, whoever is the self-managed super fund director or members, that's where we assess the servicing. Yeah. So the way the self-managed super fund is assessed is through the contribution, what are contributed towards the super fund, also the rental derived from the property that you are purchasing.
Yeah. Someone asked here, Georgia asked, can I view this at a later time? Yes, this will be saved, and if you register to it, it'll be sent to you tomorrow. It's sort of on a closed network, so only you guys that have registered will be here. So next time, if you've got friends, family, or whatever that want to, or you want to share with, make sure they register for the webinar, because that's how we get it out to you guys. But yes, it will be sent to you tomorrow. Andrew here says, are super fund loans mainly set and forget since you can't pull out equity from a self-managed super fund?
That is correct. Yeah. With the self-managed super fund, you cannot, if you're going to refinance, it's purely for interest, right? Interest rate that you're negotiating. But if you're going to refinance or even internal or external, you can't increase the loan amount. You can't. Yeah. It has to stay. So as I said, if the loan amount was 200,000, that is at 80% LVR, the property grows in value, you cannot harvest that equity.
I actually had a chat with one of our friends the other day, and they bought a property in the super. I bought them a super fund property for 200 grand, and it's worth like 350, 400. And he asked me, hey, what do I do with it? And I was like, well, look, you've got the option, but you've held it for a while and it's gone up for a couple of years, 2 years or something. And he goes, what about if I was to sell the property for 350? I'll pay a little tax on that 150K in profit, and then I can come back and buy another 3 properties. So I was like, well, what's the chance of it going up? And we brainstormed a few ideas. He had the idea of wanting to sell it. He sold it. Now he's come back buying another few properties. So there is other things that you can be doing in the super. Not that I can give you advice, and not that Rose can give you advice, but always a good soundboard, and always got a set of ears, and can listen to people's thoughts and give them nods and whatnot. There's a question here from Tom. Do you use RedZ? RedZ is a lender.
Yeah, they're in our panel of lenders, but I have not used them only because
you have used it for me.
I've used it for you. That was long time ago. No, actually, I've used it 3 times, but not.
Like 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
No, I've used one probably 3 years ago, but I haven't recently. But there is another lender there that Resimac, for example.
Yeah.
I haven't compared the products, but I haven't. Yeah, with Resimac.
I've got a question here from someone, but I can't seem to read it. So, here we go. Separate. So, where we are. Julian asks, hi Rose and Nathan, I discovered you on Chris Gray's show on his course. My question is, hi Julian, and say hi to Chris if you're speaking to him. I haven't caught up with him for a while. Chris is a gentleman. Is a strategy buying like 3 properties at 250 grand with good cash flow, or one for 750k in a blue chip location with negative gearing? I want both of it. So I've bought properties in the eastern suburbs. I've got properties in Vaucluse that I own and that my investors have bought, and we bought them very, very cheap. But for us to be able to continue the strategy of getting 20 of them or 30 of them is very hard. So
it limits you.
Limits you from servicing. So we need to make sure that we're getting enough cash flow coming in from the top. You mentioned there, would it be better to buy 3 properties at 250, which aren't as good of growth? I actually had the chat with a new investor of mine that lives on the Gold Coast today, and asked me about, do we buy in blue chip areas? And I was like, well, it just depends what you define blue chip is. And I rattled off a few streets in and around the Gold Coast. It's like, yeah, they're great locations. I'd love to have properties there. I'm like, I've bought over 5,000 of those properties over the last decade there, and they've gone up from 150, 180, 200 grand to 500, 600, 700 grand. So you don't have to have only cash flow or only growth. I want to go for both of them in the portfolio. So a property for 250 that rents for 350, 400, but I want to see that property double and triple. I actually just remembered of a property. It was a house on 2,000 square meters of block of land in southwestern Sydney that I bought for $210,000 for a client going back like 10 years ago, 12 years ago. That thing's going to have to be worth $2 million now. It's like 10 times in value in that period of time. So, you know, you can have both cash flow and growth there. So,
so many questions.
So many questions. We'll answer a couple more, then we'll get back to more slides. Tom asks, is it harder to get a loan from Resimac, need higher income? I guess there's lots of questions there from Tom about that. Reach out to Rose, reach out to the team. Marson said, jumping a little late, apologies guys, that's okay. There's lots of things we've covered off, still got some more to go. It says here, knockdown rebuilds, is it worth it? There's times that I've done building and there's times that I don't, and I stopped building properties going back about 4 years ago when I saw the builder's going to get into trouble. Every day you log on the news, there's a new one gone bankrupt. The prices just continue to go up, and the time it takes, and then the finance environment. It is not worth, in my opinion. Yes, you can make money out of doing new builds in the current market. Yes, you can, but there's a whole lot of new risk that's attached to doing so, and you can do a lot more in that same time from buying other assets. So for me, I'm not building any properties at the moment, including the house that I bought to live in. That's why I bought the new house. Joel says, my finance is about to go through the approval process. I have a principal placed resident simply cashing out equity to 80% LVR. Those funds are going into an offset account and then to use the deposit for investment purposes. Is this the best way to go? I'll answer that one. Yes, that would be my thought. Some brokers will try and cross-collateralize your loans and get you stuck together, then you're trapped with them. I think the cleanest way is to have the money released, put into an offset account, and then when you want to go use them, if it's 100 grand, 50 grand, 200 grand, whatever it is, you can then take that money out and use it as deposits for subsequent purchases. Rose?
Well, you know, I have one scenario that a client wants to know if he has that, you know, we refinance it and we have his equity from that owner up, and then that portion he has, like, say 200,000 for investment purpose, and because he hasn't found a property, we put that in the, you know, the drawn amount into 100% offset. Now his questions is that, I don't know if this is relevant, but his question is, am I gonna pay the repayments because I get the 100% offset? And the question he has, is it better off with the put the 100% offset in the owner op? I said, I have a question for you. How's your cash flow knowing you get that money here? You haven't got rental coming in yet because you haven't purchased a property yet.
Yeah.
How are you gonna balance the repayments? So I said, for me, if this is my situation where the repayments I need to my cash flow is a bit tight, I want to put the 100% offset and the interest only repayments, because I'm not compelled to pay the repayments. So things like, so going back to his questions, what you said, you can put in a 100% offset. Just think about it first, like where you're going to offset it with.
Yeah, and what is the goal? Like for me, I hate having cash sitting in my account. That's why I never have any. I'm constantly, trying to find the next asset that's going to put more cash flow into my bank account.
You're asset rich.
I'm very asset rich, and cash flow rich as well. It's just I don't like the cash being lazy and sitting there. For me, I think about it, right? Like if you've got, if you've got equity there, how long will it take you? If you're paying 5% interest, like interest rates are up high, but people are literally paying 2% interest going back 2 years ago or 12 months. 12 months ago, you get 2% interest rate. Now it could be 5 or 6% in interest rate. So getting it so cheap, right? If you had to go and earn $100,000, it would mean that you'd have to go earn 150, get extorted by the state, pay tax of $50,000 or 30% of your money would go to the state, and then with what's left over, then you could go and spend. If you go and pull 100 grand of equity out, that's money that's clear in your account, and you are paying a rate of 5, 6%, whatever, which is cheaper than inflation, right? Plus, you've got the ability to buy a new asset, which is giving you a 5, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20% cash flow return. Plus, you're getting the capital growth attached to it as well. So you're getting capital growth, you're getting cash flow, and it's an infinite return on investment. So I'm a big fan of doing that. And I'm going to answer the last question here before we get back to the slides, then we'll get to question and answer time. But I've got a question here from Cullen, which says, should you go principal and interest, even though it's marginally more out of pocket on cash flow, but then it gets you ahead more by the end of the year in terms of paying off equity, slightly ahead net anyway. For me personally, I've always kept my loans interest only, and then when they turn to principal and interest, I just leave them go to principal and interest. The reason being is that if you're going to be paying off an extra $100 per week on your mortgage and you've got 10 properties, that means that you're paying $100 for each property to pay down the loan, which would be $1,000 per week in your cash flow. That's the difference between you retiring or not. The reality of it is I've got loans that I bought a property for $150, I had a loan at $120, and now it's $120, or it's $100 grand loan, right? 10 years later, it could have gone down by $20,000, but it doesn't matter, right? Because at the end of the day, the 100 grand, 120 is not much money because inflation has done it. Seeing the properties are worth $500,000, the rents have gone up so high. So for me, instead of trying to pay down the debt to start off with, it depends what part of your portfolio you're in, I would be more about accumulating more assets. So you've got more hooks in the ocean, catching more equity, catching more cash flow, catching more capital growth. When it goes principal and interest, then that's when I just leave it principal and interest. And if your property's interest only today, and you can put your rent up $50 in the next 5 years or $100 in the next 5 years, by the time it comes around to principal interest time, then your rent has gone up sufficient to be able to pay down that debt, and you don't even realize it. And that's what I think is really important. So, but no financial advice, of course. When should you get your home loan or property portfolio reviewed? Rose?
Well, I always, it's a common sense for me. It's a common sense. Like if I'm looking at my property portfolio and yet I'm struggling with the repayments, right? So I think it's a red alert that you need to review it. And even if you're not struggling with the repayments, you heard a lot in the news or whatever that interest rate now are going down or going up. And that also flag you like, okay, review your property portfolio. If I have a blanket thing, like probably I would, before this a lot of increase of interest rate, I would always say like once a year I do review it. But nowadays I think you probably have to review more often.
I think every 6 months you should look at that, because what equity have you got? Right? What's the bank products allowing you to do? one bank may not pull that equity today, but in 3 months' time, they might allow you to pull it out. So it's really important to have that relationship, in my view, with your lender. And I've annoyed Rose for 20 years now, almost. And
still annoying me.
Here we go. Right. And if I didn't, then, you know, I've got to take responsibility of my own property portfolio. I've got to, you know, be proactive. And I know the team, we've got really great processes and procedures and systems in place to flag our investors to say, hey, you've got some equity and stuff like that. But I think it's important for you as the investor to be, you know, or the homeowner to be proactive with talking to your broker and communicating with them and saying, hey, can I get equity? Can I get a rate cut? You know, what's just happening? So just, have a chat, even if it's just a bit of email correspondence every 6 months, whether it's a call, 5-minute call, 15-minute call every 6 months.
Yeah, and if you're an investor, I think I would always suggest that it doesn't have to be Zinger or whoever. You need to have brokers that know how to do investment loan, know how to structure, know how to process, and, you know, help you get there. Yeah. Because some of these brokers, they would turn you off because they would say, why stop at 2 properties, don't do it anymore. Like, we hear it all the time. Like, my broker doesn't really like me to buy anymore because this and that. I said, look, we can help you as long as you want to be helped.
I was talking to a client tonight, and they said that their broker, they're not using Zinger, they said that their broker said that they should wait until the end of the year and see what happens to the market, because they think the market's going to crash. And I was like, what market, right? And literally, here we are buying properties, like the Gold Coast is booming, for example, but there's other markets which we're picking up for half the price that they sold for 20 years ago. There's always a market here, market there, inner market and an outer market. And I think it's important that brokers will tell their opinions, and it's based on their knowledge base, right? And the thing with the team at Zinger is that you've got so much knowledge from so much data that you have across all these large property portfolios.
We have so much,
And it's actual data, it's real life data.
Real life, and it's really like we how many loans per a month, right? Different scenarios. We've done it all.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for that, Rose. And now we can get to our questions. Q&A. And I'm going to answer the questions. We'll get back to the questions. But if someone wants to organise a catch up or a review of their portfolio, or check up on their home loan or whatever, the details are on the screen. Send an email for a health check, and the team at Zinger will be able to assist on that front.
And Nathan, just to remind, we have been actively calling our existing clients, the post-care, to help you review your portfolio. So guys, if you receive a call from Zinger, it's purely like to ensure, like, okay, what can we do? What can we help to ensure like your portfolio is still functioning for you, or whatever the case.
Yeah. So I've got a question here from Jason. He goes, firstly, Birchie, when's the rat tail going? For those of you that don't know, it's a very long rat tail. I've tied it up because this isn't plaited today. I hate it. I hate my rat tail. I wanted to grow a rat tail. Lockdown, you know, the hair grew long and whatever. So I just grew it. I was like, I'll grow a rat tail, right? The world's a mess. So I grew a rat tail, and I hate it. And I thought, I've pushed myself so hard to get this stupid rat's tail. How am I going to get, I'm not just going to cut it off for no reason. So I made a bet with myself that when I get under 100 kilos, I've been going out, working out every day and walking a lot.
Your muscle.
No, I'm not going to do that. But I said, when I get under 100 kilos, I'm massive. I'm 6'4" and hands the size of a dinner plate. And with it, I said, after I get to under 100 kilos, I'm going to shave my whole head. So when I have a shaved head, I'm not getting a haircut at all. That's why I hate my hair at this length. And I'm just going to shave the whole thing off once I hit that.
Up to 100 kilos.
So I'm pushing myself to do that.
You'll be proud of yourself.
I've got to do that, Rose. I'm getting big in my old age. But he also asked, speaking to Denisha, and she said I would be better off to ask for an interest rate reduction. Would I be better to do it myself, or am I better to get you guys to do it with the bank? So
We can do it for you, whichever suits you, right? You
sometimes, like the loans being generated, sometimes it can be better from the broker. But if you call them, like it's more like sometimes it can be more aggressive. So yeah, if Denisha's saying for you to go to the bank, or it could be better for you to go to the bank, it could just be because, you know, given your position, when you speak to them, you know, you can say, well, I'm the decision maker. I'm going to take my
you accept what they, and also right, that they can offer you something.
They can offer it on the phone. So ask the question. It's just a question, right? One phone call somewhere. Try it yourself. If it doesn't work, come back to Zinger. Zinger will try it. All they can do is tell you to piss off. Best case is that you get a reduction. You save yourself 5, 10, 15, 20K a year. So it all adds up. Joel said, I know we already answered that one. There's lots of questions coming through, so keep questions coming.
Oh my God, there's so many questions. I like this one, the interaction, right?
Yeah. I live in rural Victoria. How do you find an investment savvy broker? Well, we've got Rose here.
We do nationally.
We do international. We've got clients that are
international,
in all different countries as well.
We get the New Zealand, the expats, the Middle East,
Yeah. So reach out. The details are there to reach out, and Rose and the team will be able to point you in the right direction. James says here, I have a property portfolio of 6 properties. I've recently made a career change, so income does not cater to service for now. My wife's income hasn't changed. We're still very keen to accumulate. However, our broker said we simply can't. Is it worthwhile? Is it worth seeing you, Rose, as I don't want to waste your time?
Look, it's always worth talking to me, because I may able to look at it more closely, and then I could probably suggest something. Or look, that broker, I'm not sure how he works or she works, but
elementary, like the the skill set could be elementary.
That's right,
the skill set could be elementary. Like
so we're more sophisticated.
Yeah.
Should I say that?
You can say whatever you want, Rose. So the result, like, who knows, right? Like if you're learning something like this, like I quite often have, like, my team, like they're talking to one of my investors, or they're talking to a new potential client of ours, and they'll be like, you know, discovering some information from them, and they'll come to me and say, hey Nathan, they've been told this, they've been told that, and I'll just say one thing. Like there was a deal today. I sent you a text message when I was driving back into Sydney, Rose, and I said, hey, they've got this client that's pulling out, they're buying 3 properties, they're pulling out a 3rd one. I said, why can't they buy it? You said they can buy it, but they can only service for like 150, 120 grand loan where they want 140. So we'll throw the extra 20K and they have it. And then what I did is I structured another deal on top, which was $75,000, and it rents for $300 a week. So if that client buys that property for 75 grand, they have no debt on it, and then the income of $300, that brings an extra $15,000 a year. That will help the servicing for the others, and it'll look after the next 2 steps for them. So instead of just buying 2 properties, we go on to 4, and then we'll be able to come back, restructure the debt, and get to another 2 afterwards. There'll be 6 that we can do instead of doing 2. So, you know, there's answers there. There's answers. So
also with servicing, for example, right? You look at some lenders, they look at like some second year, for example, they don't take into consideration the investment expenses, right?
What's that, sorry?
Some second tier lender, they don't take investment expenses. So that could increase your servicing.
Yeah.
And
you could be in a position like we were talking beforehand about the security swap. You might sit there and we could identify, okay, you've got a property that's done crazy and it may not serve its purpose anymore.
And the yield is not capped.
Yeah.
So when you look at CBA, I think the yield is capped at 6%. ANZ is 7%. I think NAV is 7%. Yes, so they cap the yield. But you look at First Mac.
Yeah.
Whatever is the rent, they'll take it.
Exactly. So send an email over and have a chat to the team. Brett here says, how common is it to request an extension on finance during a purchase? I am going on 4 out of 4 so far. Very, very common to be requesting extensions. I'd probably say, that 60% of properties that get purchased need an extension because just not enough time. Just a matter of asking your lawyer to request that extension, and you've got extra time to get it because it's important you structure your loan correctly, and you don't want to just set it up anyway and snook yourself or checkmate your position. So yeah. Matt says here, hi Rose and Nathan, what would your thoughts be on when/if the 3% buffer rate from APRA will decrease, and does this apply to all banks?
You know what? That is the most question that I've asked all the BDMs. I said during the time when the interest rate was low,
yeah,
the APRA increased the stress rate to your actual rate plus the 3%.
Yeah.
From 2.5, I think. I said, shouldn't it bring that down now from 3 to 2.5? It's not the bank's call, it's APRA.
Yeah. So and my thought is that for us to see this come down, right? Let's say, for instance, they remove it, they take it back to 2%. They remove it completely, right? Just hypothetically, right? But what about when interest rates fall? What will happen? I actually have this belief that that is becoming, if we really look at the back end of the bank, it's probably become easier to get a loan approved, right? But harder because of the interest rate. Would you say?
Yes.
Yeah. So if the interest rates went back to where they were, overnight they changed interest rates to March 2020, March 2022, the interest rate from a year ago, what would the servicing be like? It would be so much better than what it was than it was last year. So I think it's just a matter of time, and then that will be the start of the next boom. But all those people, like I said on slide number 7, where if you sit and wait and hope and pray, then you know when that day comes, you won't have the ability to build your portfolio.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's not the bank's call; it's APRA. So I'm hoping that it, 2.5 back to 2.5.
Nicole said here, hello, how many properties could I purchase with $200,000 available for deposits? With $200,000, if I had 200 grand hit my bank account and I was building a portfolio today, I would take that 200 grand, split it into 4 deposits for $50,000 per deposit. I'd use that to buy 4 properties at 200 grand a piece. Once you settle those properties at 200 grand a piece, go back, you'd be wanting to buy them below market value and having good cash flow to keep the servicing happy for the banks. Go back, pull out equity, refinance it, pull out equity, use that equity to go buy the next 2 or 3 properties and rinse and repeat that process. So I've seen people with 80, 100,000 get to 10 properties in a 2-year period.
That is because we harvest equity.
Harvest the equity and the debt structured correctly. But if you do, everyone's seen this slide. If you do want to speak to us, take a photo of it, take a screenshot of it. Remember the email address, info@zingerfinance.com.au, because I'm going to slide over to the next one. If you do want to have a chat with my team about just general portfolio structuring, how to build a portfolio like this question that has been asked through from Nicole, how many properties can you buy with 200 grand, etc. Reach out to my team, and that's what we specialize on every day. What other questions we've got here? They're coming through, but I think we're getting to the end of
These are very interesting questions. A pity, we don't have enough time to.
Well, I think that's it for this evening. We don't want to keep the webinar going on for hours and hours. Been here for 1.5 hours, and we appreciate everyone's time and spending your Wednesday evening with us. So on that note, let's wrap it up for today. And if people do want help, they can reach out to us. And thanks, Rose, for coming in. And
thank you, everyone. And please contact us, whatever it is. If you want to review your portfolio, your interest rate, or purely wants to speak to us for whatever reason, please send us an email or contact our phone number.
Give us a buzz. We'll catch up soon, guys. Thanks a lot for tuning in.
Thank you. Good night.
Keep being awesome and take advantage of the opportunities that are out there in the market. We'll catch up soon, guys. Bye for now.
Bye.